Okay everyone, welcome again to one of our lessons, and in this next session I just want to go and show you here a cool feature of CSS. Again, this is an HTML fundamental course, and this is supposedly more focused with the HTML elements and the attributes. However, I already want to go and introduce to you some of the different features that you can go and include in some of your future projects, and that will be including using CSS animations and other features that you might want to go and implement so that you can make your website a little bit more dynamic. So I've already opened up here some of the documentation. So CSS animations will be allowing you to animate HTML elements without even using JavaScript or Flash. So we can see here that there are some properties that we can use. I won't be discussing all of them in this course. However, I already want you to know that they exist so that you can go and already do some advanced research and reading so that you can try to understand how they work. And then, of course, you can now remember, then apply the things that you have read and even the simple thing that we will be doing here in our project. So if we go down here, it says here, what are CSS animations? They allow us to animate elements gradually changing from one style to another. You can change as many CSS properties you want and as many times you want. And to use CSS animation, you must first specify some keyframes for the animation. Keyframes hold what styles the element will have at certain times. The @keyframe rule here will be specifying CSS styles inside the @keyframes rule. The animation will gradually change from the current style to the new style at certain times. And for you to be able to work, or for you to be able to make the animation work, you must bind the animation to an element. Here we can see an example that will be binding the animation to the element or to the div element that will be lasting for 4 seconds, that will allow it to go and change the background color gradually from red to yellow. So if we try to go and look into the try it yourself here, we can see here the code, the div element that contains certain properties, and @keyframe with the example animation name, and then the animation duration of 4 seconds. So if we try to run this, you would see that the red gradually changed the background color to yellow. We can also see here some notes that says that this example does not work in Internet Explorer 9 and earlier versions, so you should be aware of that. And when the animation is finished, it changes back to its original style. And some keywords here inside of the @keyframes code block that says that from and to, that signifies the change of the background color from red to yellow. So if we go back down here, the animation duration property defines how long time an animation should take to complete. And if it is not specified, no animation will occur because the default value is 0 seconds. We can see here that there's an example that specifies when the style will be changing by using the keywords from and to, but it can also be represented by 0%, which means start, and 100%, which is the completion of the animation. We can see here that it also explained that by using percentage, we can add as many style changes for the element. And for the next example here, it will be changing the background color of the div element when the animation is 25%, complete, 50% complete, and again when the animation is 100% complete. So if we try to click on that, we can see if we run this code, we can see that it changes every 4 seconds from 0% from red, 25% yellow, 50% blue, and 100% green. Let's do that again. Red, yellow, blue, and then green for the last background color here. I would suggest that you go through some of the other examples here. Now let's go to the other documentation here. It says here that the keyframes CSS @rule controls the intermediate steps in a CSS animation sequence. By defining styles for keyframes or waypoints along the animation sequence, this gives more control over the intermediate steps of the animation sequence than transitions. So we have some examples here. We have the transform property, and then use the translate X axis. We can also use the from to keywords here, and you would see here that the method that was used here was the transform property was the one that was used, and we gave a value of 0% to 100% for the translate X value. So we do have here some of the custom indent values, a name identifying the keyframe list. This must match the identifier production in CSS syntax. And we have here from and to, then the percentage. So I would want you to read more about this, but let's now go and proceed to our project and let's try to implement some CSS animation in our code. The element that I would want to target for our project here is the header logo box from where we have our header image. So let's try to go and add some animation for our header image here. Now what I want to do here will be to go and target the image folder and then the our logo.png, and that's going to be the one that we will be trying to animate. And we will be maximizing the use of the margin property, because if you remember in lesson 35, the margin property, it says there that we can apply some animation for the margin property. So let's go down here and let's try to look for our header logo box, and we would want it to be positioned to absolute. We also want it to have a height of, let's say, 10 pixels, and animation property that we will be naming move owl. Okay, for now. So let's go back to our browser and then try to refresh it. Now if we try to go and open up here and look for margin property, we can see here, if you remember our documentation saying that we can have it animated. So here we have here animatable. Now let's go back to our code editor and let's go and below the header logo box, let's use the @keyframes. Then we have named it move owl. So we'll be using that, and then the code block. And what we want to do here is at 30%, we would want the margin to have a property value of 20 pixels from top and bottom and negative 20 pixels. Then we also have 50% here. At around 50%, we want the margin to be 20 pixels. So we have here 20 pixels top and bottom, left and right negative 20 pixels, and then when it reaches 50%, we would be having a margin of 20 pixels. Of course, we would want to have an animation duration of 4 seconds for now. Now let's go back to our project here. Let's refresh. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so we were able to animate and move the owl in that manner. You can see it moved from the top, negative 20 pixels to the left, then move to the right, and then move back up to the top again. So that's cool, right? So if we go back to our CSS animations here, let's try to go and look for the animation iteration count here. So if we go down here, I believe we can see that here, and it says here the animation iteration count property specifies the number of times an animation should run. So here we can give it a value of infinite. So let's try to go and apply that in our project. So let's go here and then animation iteration count, and let's give it a value of infinite. Let's save that and let's try to go and refresh our browser here, and there you go. It's already working, and animation, and we now have implemented our first dynamic animation into our HTML file here without using JavaScript. Okay, so hopefully you got the idea here, and thank you. See you on our next lesson.